Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story TV. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Thank you, Gertrude. My name is Lisa Erickson, and I am based south of Boston in Massachusetts. And my story is more about maternal ferocity versus my experiences with cancer, but it starts with cancer. So there was a day, and I will never forget this day, where I had already been diagnosed with not one, but two cancers, and I had gone through 2 chemos. But anyways, this day I was sitting in my sister's home, which is about 10 minutes outside of Boston proper. And she has this adorable old stagecoach home. And we had moved me there because this was during the epidemic in 2020 and 2021. And I had been diagnosed, and it was already at a stage where it was moving very fast. So I went through the protocols of the first chemo. And I'll never forget this day. I was sitting on her couch. My husband was to my left. We had set up the Zoom call, like my computer, much like this, and we were getting ready to speak with my oncologist. And I was pretty weak, but I was 100% positive that I had nipped it. In my mind, I did everything energetically. I did everything mindset-wise. I did everything in my capacity to help the chemo do its job. And so when my oncologist came on the screen, he said, "It's back." And it was like my whole world shook, but that wasn't the worst of it. When he said it was back, I looked at my husband, and then he said that we needed to try something additional. And I said, okay, it was at this time when I had been diagnosed, it had already been in motion for probably 4 years. Now, looking back, I can see the signs that I ignored. And I didn't have an opportunity maybe to try it my way. I did require emergency chemo. So when I brought that to his attention, because I had already felt pretty beat up for the chemo, and I said, I'd like to try it my way. And he said, "You don't have 3 months." And my husband said I slid off the couch and onto the floor. I actually don't even remember it. Like, in that moment, I'm not going to say my entire world shattered, but I was like, not only did it not work, but you're telling me I don't even have 3 months? And so that is a day that is forever etched in my mind as a turning point in my life, where up until that moment, myself that I had known was gone. And there was a new being or way of being that was being born out of the desire to live, and to not just live, but to also be present and healthy for my children. And so 3.5 more years went by, and after several different chemo attempts, eventually we came to a point where the last shot was a therapy called CART therapy. And there were moments going through that entire journey and experience, and I had already decided I was going to go through this from the lens of love. I didn't have any prior experience with cancer. It wasn't something that was in my wheelhouse. So to say it was a shock to my system is mild. What got me through this entire journey was basically my maternal ferocity. And when you're somebody struggling with this level of intensity, it's only normal, I think, to experience what I call magical terror. And I'm not somebody who's prone to panic attacks, but there were moments at like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., at least 3 I can think of, where I was really heading into a full-blown panic attack, because at the time, there were no guarantees. What I was trying wasn't working. So in that moment, in that middle of the night, I could just feel like the breath that I had left, it was leaving me. And I was so, my body had taken so many hits. I was literally being breathed with whatever keeps everything in this universe alive. But the one thing, and this is one of my 3 takeaways, that truly got me through this, I believe, because if it wasn't for, that maternal ferocity and my will to live, combined with Western medicine, I don't think I would be here without either one. And so, when people talk about cancer, they talk about, you can fight this. You don't fight cancer. You don't have the energy to fight cancer. You have to surrender into the teaching lessons that are available there. And I know that's a big pill to swallow, but that's what I did. And so for me, with anything, but specifically with cancer, I had to get myself in a mindset, in a position where I was hyper focusing on one thing only. And it was something that was greater than myself. So it wasn't fighting cancer. It was a healthy version of me being with my children and my grandchildren. And I was hyper focused, locked in, and loaded. And when you have something that's much stronger than what you're thinking here, and that was backed with my maternal ferocity, that is truly what pulled me through and kept me going every single day, because I'm not a quitter, but man, there were days where I just had to really force myself to get out of bed. I had to envision 3 hours ahead because I felt so bad, like how to get into the shower. I was so cold that I would have to have my bathrobe here, and God love my husband. He had foresight. He had like a chair in the shower because I would be so exhausted that I could go in there and sit. So that's one thing. I think that that is really the most important thing, was that I had my children that I wanted to be here for. The second thing I did was I would work on balancing my brain and my brain hemisphere, because clearly there were things that, I mean, I didn't know what it was, but the intensity of the cancer does affect your thinking, and it affects your mindset, and it affects your mood. So one of the things that I would do is I would do this little 3-minute exercise. And what I would do is I would center my breathing, and I would take a deep breath, and I would look to the right, and I would begin speaking to my cells, and I would begin affirming to my cells that, that they were safe, or whatever I said to them. And then I would take a deep breath, and I would come back to center. And then I would take another deep breath, and I would turn my head to the other side. And I would come back, and I would be talking to myself through this. And then I would take my thumb and my forefinger, and I would just begin massaging the top of my ears, because somewhere along the line, I was taught that the inside of the earlobe is actually the spinal column, like the fetus of the baby upside down. So I started massaging my ears, which would get my, spinal fluid, my cerebral spinal fluid going, and all the way down to the bottom. And I would take my palms up, and I would put them on my thighs in a receiving position. And I would do that 2 more times. So that those are the 2 things. And then there was, what was the other thing that I would do? The other thing that I did is, even on the hardest days, I made sure that I got up and that I took 1 step more than I did the day before. So there is great power in the will. There is great power in the things that you love more than yourself. There is great power in balancing your mind, your body, and your spirit.
Wow, Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's incredible what has brought you to this point. Now, what changed for you spiritually and emotionally through this experience?
Well, one of the really fascinating things was, in that moment of that magical terror, I actually sounds crazy, but I met my light body. Like I don't see things visually, but that night I saw her, and or it, and I didn't know what to do. I knew that this whatever was going on, I was either going to sink or swim. And I didn't know. Like I just knew that somehow that there had to be a connection, and I didn't know if it fused, if I was going to live or die. Clearly I lived. So that was pretty wild. And that solidified for me in a more tangible and visual way that the invisible things that we don't see doesn't mean that it's not real.
Yeah.
It also, when you're in this journey with your mortality, you really quickly begin going through things because you don't want any regrets.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that cancer, as I chose to see it as a teacher, it began to show me the spaces. And believe me, this is not easy. Like, it's not easy to be like, cancer is your teacher, right?
Yeah.
But I chose to go through it like that. And it showed me the places where I was, to use those terms, not speaking my truth, where I was holding back things. And that kind of bottleneck is poison.
Yeah. It gets trapped in your body, in your system somewhere.
Yeah.
So, where do you believe your inner healing power began? Was it before the cancer or was it during?
I mean, to be honest with you, I think I always had it. It just became 1,000x during the cancer scenario.
Yeah. So how did your motherhood shape your determination to survive? That maternal ferocity. What does that mean to you?
Well, as women, and you probably already know this, women tend to respond being like the initiators of things. And I certainly am like that. At the time when I was diagnosed, it was on the move. Like, I didn't feel anything. It was just this really strange sensation that brought me to, the doctors. And I don't go to the doctors often. So when that diagnosis came, it was a bomb. But within 2 months of that, I was having a lot of pain. And I didn't want to go to the hospital until I had to.
Yeah.
Eventually, I ended up in there. And one night, no, it wasn't a night, it was during the day. I remember I was in Boston. I was being treated by Dana-Farber, and I was in Mass General. And yes, I had some pain medicine, but I went into this dark void and I wasn't asleep. All my vitals were fine, but
Wow.
I went someplace and I heard, you have a choice. You can stay or you can go. I was like, well, I'm staying. Like, I'm staying. I'm not going. I mean, I'm kicking and screaming here. Like, this is not gonna go out easy. And then I heard, and this is so interesting, I heard, well, if you stay, you have to change your story.
Oh, wow.
What do you mean? Yeah. And so it's really hard, and it seems almost like made up, but this really happened. And I said, well, okay, well, tell whatever. Inside my head, I'm like, well, what's the story? And then I was shown the mindset I was in at the time. My story was playing out a timeline where I was seeing my kids really screwed up because they had a mom who died from cancer. Like, that's what was going through my head. And when I saw that, I realized that fast that we need to have a different story.
Wow.
And
now, you had researched alternative healing long before your diagnosis. What did you learn that helped save your life?
That you can use your will. And I have a very strong will and a very thick head. So I think the combination of cancer bringing me to my knees to maybe transform some of the things that created it at the root level, and maybe even like in my lineages, was just as strong as my will to live.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really invoked my will as much and as humanly possible as I was aware and paid attention to it, which was often, like, that was work in and of itself.
Now, when we caught up, you said that it was magical terror.
Mhm.
What happens in that moment, and how can women ground themselves when everything collapses?
Well, I have to preface this that I had a 20-year practice of, really rooting myself, grounding myself, and breathing. So, and I personally defaulted back onto that. Like, if somebody didn't have a practice like that, and you can use that, head tilt breathing exercise just to begin getting you out of your head. Don't think, because thinking isn't always accurate,
Yes.
So I would very quickly, I'm not saying it's easy, but I had enough wherewithal, and my desire to do whatever it took overrode any old patterning. And I would just quickly, almost like in the United, they probably have this everywhere, but back in the day in the United States, they have soap operas, and the women would give each other like a soap opera slap. So I would give myself like an invisible soap opera slap, like, get out of it. This is not helping, because that's just going to perpetuate and keep it going. So that magical terror is like, it's a moment where you decide if I was going to go into the panicking and go down that timeline, or if I was going to get myself in order and do the deeper work that I needed to do to have the healthy timeline.
So you've reinvented yourself multiple times, from being a cancer survivor to an AI expert and a business mentor. What thread connects all of these versions of you?
The only way I can describe it, because I didn't set out for any of this at all, is there is what I call the feminine dimension. And there is this spark in all of us that, and tie that with this maternal ferocity. There's just this desire to feel this radiant life force. And even, in the worst times, I've always known that existed, even when it was dim, even when it looked like it went out. It's always, I've never second guessed that ever, no matter what.
So what is the biggest misconception women have about healing from trauma or illness?
I mean, I can't speak for anybody else, but there's always a way. There's always a way. When your reason is bigger than yourself, you do what it takes, no matter what.
There is always a way. Now, how did cancer change your relationship with spirituality and intuition?
It just made it so much stronger and irrevocable. It has become integrated in me. If I ever doubted it before cancer, I don't anymore.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what is the resurrection theme that you mentioned, and how does it show up in your life today?
Well, I'm not on the cross anymore. It's a constant mini theme. Like, that was a big one, right? That was a big one. I am much more present. I am much more connected. The little things that might have taken me out before, they're no big whoop. I have more compassion for people. I have more compassion for myself. I had an incredible support system, and I have never felt so much love as I felt during that journey in my entire life, from other people and from myself.
Yeah, that's just amazing. Now, if you could go back to that younger woman, the young woman who was faced with this diagnosis, the thought of leaving her children, if you could go back and give her 3 nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those 3 nuggets of wisdom be?
Don't go unexpressed. That doesn't mean say everything you think to everybody, but it means, at the end of the day, take stock of your day, see what it is that is left unsaid, unfelt, unintegrated, and, weave that inside yourself. Find some kind of somatic body practice to help integrate all of you. And 3, in any kind of circumstance, whatever you're trying to create, whether it's health, anything, there has to be a reason bigger than you. Because when the chips are down, that's where you put your attention and you allow that to pull you forward.
Fantastic. Last question. I'm teleporting you into the future this time, the future that you created for yourself. If we could go and sit and have a conversation with a 90-year-old you.
90?
Yep.
Okay, 90.
She's sitting in her rocking chair, surrounded by her children, her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren. If you could teleport into the future and have a conversation with this wise woman, what would you say to her when you finally meet her? She's been guiding you up until that point.
Thank you. And I wish I listened a lot sooner, but what is it? Better late than never.
I love it. Now, Lisa, is there anything else I should have asked you and I didn't?
No, I think we touched upon all the things.
Fantastic. So thank you so much for coming online and sharing your story with our community today. It's an absolute powerful message that we all need to hear, especially at the end of the year, when everybody's thinking of reinventing themselves in the next year. And thank you to everybody who tuned in. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We're a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to help take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So if you are a woman who has been diagnosed with cancer, or you know someone who is, please share this video. Here is an inspiring story that can help you believe that if you focus on the future, focus on being there for your son's graduation, their weddings, seeing your own grandchildren, it will pull you through these difficult times. I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody, when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Lisa, thank you again for this interview.
Thank you, Gertrude.
Bye for now, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning into the Her Story. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story.